The throne room of Valoria Prime was silent. King Thalarin sat on his golden seat and stared at the holographic map. Floating before him, red marks covered the display. Each mark was a world lost to the Kreen Dominion. Each mark was a failure. The king was old now. His silver skin had lost its shine, and his golden eyes were tired. He had ruled the Valoran Empire for 300 years, and in all that time he had never faced an enemy. Like the Cranes, they were brutal. They were hungry. They did not want peace or trade. They wanted everything, and they would kill anyone who stood in their way. Father Dalver turned his head. His daughter Elindra stood at the entrance of the throne room. She wore her battle armor, black and gold, fitted perfectly to her tall frame. She was young by Valoran standards, only 90 years old, but she had already proven herself as one of the finest warriors in the Empire. You should not be here, Dalvin said. The War Council meeting is not for another hour. I know. Elandra walked toward him. Her boots made soft sounds on the polished floor. I came to speak with you alone. The king studied his daughter. She was the youngest of his 7 children, but she was also the bravest. The others had chosen politics or art or science. Elandra had chosen the sword. She reminded him of himself when he was young and foolish and believed he could change the galaxy. Speak, he said. The colony on Selva Prime is in danger, Elindra said. Our scouts report a Kreen fleet moving toward it. 12 warships. Maybe more. I know this already. Then you also know that we must defend it. There are 2 million Valorans living on that world. If the Kreens reach them, I know what will happen. The king's voice was sharp. He had seen what the Seathans did to captured worlds. He did not need his daughter to remind him. Hi. Commander Zus is preparing a defensive fleet. I want to lead it. Thavern closed his eyes. He had expected this. Elandra never ran from a fight. It was the quality he admired most in her, and it was also the quality that kept him awake at night. The Seathans have more ships than us, he said. This battle will be difficult. All battles are difficult. This one could kill you. Elindra smiled. It was a sad smile, the kind that soldiers wore when they understood the truth of war. Every battle could kill me, father. That has never stopped me before. The king wanted to refuse. He wanted to keep his daughter safe in the palace, far from the blood and fire of combat, but he knew that was not possible. Elendra was not the kind of person who could sit and wait while others fought. She needed to be out there protecting her people. Very well, Dalvin said. You will command the fleet, but promise me something, anything. Come back to me. Elendra reached out and took her father's hand. Her grip was firm and warm. I promise. 3 days later, Elendra stood on the bridge of her flagship. The starfall around her. Officers worked at their stations, preparing for the battle. Ahead, through the main viewport, she could see the blue and green sphere of Selva Prime. It was a beautiful world, covered in forests and oceans. 2 million people lived down there, trusting the fleet to keep them safe. Commander, an officer called out. Enemy ships detected. 14 warships. They will arrive in 20 minutes. 14 more than their scouts had predicted. Elendra had only 8 ships under her command. The numbers were not good, but numbers did not always decide battles. All ships formed defensive line, she ordered. Protect the planet at all costs. The Valoran fleet moved into position. 8 Ships against 14, it would be a hard fight, but Elendra had faith in her. Crews, they were trained, they were brave, they would not run. The Crane ships appeared from hyperspace like demons emerging from darkness. They were ugly things covered in spikes and weapons. The Cranes did not care about beauty, they only cared about destruction. Open fire. Elendra commanded. The battle began. Energy beams cut through space. Explosions lit up the darkness. Ships twisted and turned, trying to find advantages, trying to survive. The Valoran fleet fought with skill and courage, but the Seathans had more guns, more armor, more everything. One by one, Valoran ships began to fall. Elendra watched the Bright Hope explode, taking 300 crew members with it. She watched the Defender lose its engines and drift helplessly before a Kreen ship tore it apart. She watched her fleet die, and she knew that she was losing. Commander, we must retreat, her first officer said. We cannot win this battle. If we retreat, the colony dies. If we stay, we all die. Elendra gripped the arms of her command chair. Her heart was pounding, her mind was racing. She had promised her father that she would return, but she had also promised herself that she would never abandon innocent people. A Kreen warship turned toward the Starfall, its weapons charged, glowing with deadly energy. Evasive action. Elendra shouted. The Starfall tried to turn, but it was too slow. The enemy beam hit the ship's side, cutting through armor like a knife. Through cloth, alarm screamed. Lights flickered. The bridge shook so hard that Elendra was thrown from her chair. Hall breach on deck 7 through 12. Engines at 40%. We have lost weapons control. Elendra pulled herself up. Blood ran down her face from a cut on her forehead. Around her, officers were injured or dead. The ship was dying. All hands, abandon ship, she ordered. Her voice was calm, even though her heart was breaking. Get to the escape pods now. She made her way through the burning corridors, helping injured crew members as she went. The ship groaned and shuddered around her. She reached the escape pod bay and pushed the last few survivors inside before climbing into a pod herself. The pod launched just as the Starfall exploded. Elendra watched through the small window as her ship became a ball of fire. Then something hit her pod, an explosion. Debris from the battle. She did not know. All she knew was pain and spinning, and darkness closing in around her. The pod's navigation system was damaged. It locked onto the nearest planet with a breathable atmosphere and began its descent. Elendra tried to stay conscious, but her injuries were too severe. The last thing she saw before everything went black was a blue and green world rushing toward her. Far away, on Valoria Prime, King Thalern received the message. The fleet was destroyed. The colony had fallen, and his daughter's life signature had disappeared. The king did not cry. He did not scream. He simply sat on his throne and felt his heart turn to stone. His beloved Elendra was gone. Daniel Carter was chopping wood behind his cabin when the sky caught fire. He stopped mid-swing and looked up. Something was falling through the clouds, trailing smoke and flame. It was not a meteor. It was too controlled, too purposeful. It looked like something trying to land but failing badly. The object disappeared behind the mountains. To the east, a few seconds later, Daniel heard the crash. It was distant but loud, like thunder trapped underground. He stood there for a long moment, holding his axe, trying to decide what to do. The smart thing would be to go inside and call Sheriff Katie Morgan. Let the authorities handle it, but Daniel had never been good at doing that. Smart thing, he put down the axe and went inside to get his gear. Daniel was 34 years old. He had spent 10 years in the army as a combat medic, serving in places whose names he tried to forget. He had seen friends die in his arms. He had saved lives and lost lives, and carried the weight of both. When he finally came home, he found that home did not feel like home anymore. So he moved to the mountains of Colorado, built a cabin with his own hands, and tried to find peace in the silence. He packed a medical kit, a flashlight, some rope, and a hunting rifle. He did not know what he would find, but he wanted to be ready for anything. The hike took 2 hours. The crash site was deeper in the wilderness than he had expected, in a valley that he had never explored before. When he finally reached it, the sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. The thing that had fallen was not a plane. It was not a satellite. It was something that Daniel's mind could not immediately understand. It was a pot of some kind made of metal that seemed to shimmer between silver and gold. It was about the size of a small car, but shaped like a teardrop. Smoke rose from cracks in its surface. Strange symbols were carved into its hull, symbols that looked like no language Daniel had ever seen. What the hell, he whispered. He approached slowly, rifle ready. The pod had created a long trench in the earth when it landed, tearing through trees and rocks. Its front section was badly damaged, crumpled like paper. Daniel heard a sound, a weak, painful moan. Someone was alive inside. He moved faster now, his training taking over. He found what looked like a hatch on the side of the pod. It was partially open, jammed by the crash. Daniel grabbed the edge and pulled with all his strength. The metal groaned and bent, and the hatch came free. The smell hit him first, burning electronics, blood, something else, something strange and alien. He shined his flashlight inside and saw her. She was not human. Her skin was silver, like polished metal. Her hair was white and long, tangled with blood. Her face was shaped like a human face, but sharper, more angular, with cheekbones that seemed too high and a jaw that seemed too perfect. Her eyes were closed, but Daniel could see that they were large, larger than human eyes. She was badly hurt. Burns covered her arms. Her left leg was bent at a wrong angle. Blood, dark purple instead of red, pulled beneath her. Daniel's first instinct was to run. This was not natural. This was not possible. Aliens were things in movies, not things that crashed in the mountains of Colorado. But then she moaned again, and the sound was so full of pain that Daniel's instincts as a medic pushed everything else aside. He climbed into the pod. "Hey," he said softly, "can you hear me? I'm going to help you." She did not respond. She was unconscious, maybe dying. Daniel worked quickly. He checked her breathing. It was shallow but present. He checked her pulse. He found it on her neck, just like a human, but it was faster, almost twice as fast as a normal heartbeat. He did not know if that was normal for her kind or a sign of shock. Her leg was broken in at least 2 places. He splinted it as best as he could with materials from his kit and branches from outside. Her burns were severe but not life-threatening. The bigger concern was internal bleeding. Her stomach was swollen and Hard, a bad sign in any species. He could not treat her here. He needed to get her back to his cabin. Daniel was a strong man, but she was tall, maybe 7 ft. Carrying her would not be easy. He managed to lift her over his shoulders in a fireman's carry, grunting under the weight. Then he began the long walk home. It took him 4 hours of stumbling through the dark forest, his legs burning, his back screaming in protest. Several times he wanted to stop to rest, but he knew that if he put her down, he might not be able to pick her up again. When he finally reached his cabin, he was more exhausted than he had ever been in his life. He laid her on his bed and collapsed into a chair, breathing hard. Then he got to work. Over the next 3 days, Daniel did not sleep more than a few hours at a time. He cleaned her wounds and changed her bandages. He set her broken leg properly, using wooden boards as a better splint. He fed her water through a dropper, hoping that water would not kill her. The hardest part was the internal bleeding. He had no way to operate on her, no way to know what her organs looked like or where they were. All he could do was keep her still and hope that her body could heal itself. On the 4th day, she opened her eyes. Daniel was sitting beside the bed, reading an old book, when he heard her gasp. He looked up and found 2 golden eyes staring at him with pure terror. She tried to move to get away from him, but her body was too weak. She cried out in pain and fell back against the pillows. Easy, easy, Daniel said, raising his hands to show he was not a threat. You are safe. I'm not going to hurt you. She did not understand him. Of course she did not. She spoke language from another world, but Daniel had learned something important during his years as a medic. Words were not the only way to communicate. Tone mattered. Body language mattered. Patience mattered. He moved slowly, carefully. He brought her water and showed her that it was safe by drinking some himself first. He checked her bandages gently, letting her see everything he was doing before he did it. He smiled at her, even though she looked at him like he was a monster. Days passed. Her wounds began to heal faster than any human wounds would have. The fear in her eyes slowly changed to confusion and then to curiosity. She started trying to communicate. She pointed at things and made sounds, and Daniel repeated the sounds and pointed back. She had some kind of device in her ear that seemed to be learning his language, because after a week she started to understand simple words. Daniel, he said one morning, pointing at himself. She studied him for a long moment, then she pointed at herself. Elindra, it was the first word she spoke that he understood, and it made him smile. Nice to meet you, Elindra. 3 weeks after the crash, Elindra could walk again. Her leg had healed in a way that amazed Daniel. The bones had knitted together perfectly, leaving no sign of the breaks. Her burns had faded to faint marks on her silver skin. Her body was strong in ways that human bodies were not. Her translation device had also adapted to English. She could speak now, though her accent was strained, and her grammar was sometimes wrong, but they could finally have real conversations, and Daniel found himself looking forward to them more than anything else. They sat on the porch of his cabin one evening, watching the sun set behind the mountains. The sky was painted in colors that Elindra said did not exist on her world. She seemed to find Earth beautiful in a sad way, like something precious that she could never keep. Tell me about your home, Daniel said, Elindra was quiet for a moment. The Loria Prime is very different from this place. Our sky is purple, our sun is smaller and gives less warmth. We build our cities in the clouds on platforms that float above the ground. That sounds amazing. It is, she paused, or it was. I do not know what the Kreens have done to it. Since I left, Daniel had learned about the Cathins over the past few weeks. They were the enemy that Elindra's people were fighting, a species of reptilian conquerors who destroyed everything in their path. The war had been going on for decades and the Valorans were losing. Your father must be worried about you, Daniel said. Elindra looked down at her hands. My father thinks I'm dead. My escape pod was damaged. My life signature would have disappeared from the fleet sensors. He has no reason to believe I survived. Then we need to contact him. Let him know you are alive. With what? Your world has no connection to the galactic communication network. Your species has not even left your own solar system yet. She said it without cruelty, just as a fact. I'm stranded here, Daniel. There is no way home. Daniel did not know what to say. He could not imagine being trapped on an alien world millions of light years from everyone he loved. The loneliness would be unbearable. I am sorry, he said. Finally, Elindra looked at him. Her golden eyes were soft in the fading light. You saved my life. You had no reason to help me. I was a stranger, a creature from another world. Most beings would have run away or tried to kill me. But you carried me through the forest and healed my wounds and treated me with kindness. Why? Daniel thought about the question. It was something he had asked himself many times since that night. I was a medic in the army, he said. I spent years trying to save people. Sometimes I succeeded, sometimes I failed. When I found you in that pod, broken and bleeding, I did not see an alien. I just saw someone who needed help. I could not walk away from that. Elindra reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were longer than human fingers, but her touch was gentle. On my world we call this vow. It means the courage to help without expecting anything in return. It is considered the highest virtue, but it is rare. Most people only help when they will gain something. She squeezed his hand. You have vowed. Daniel caught her. My people would honor you for it. They sat together in comfortable silence as the stars came out. Daniel noticed that Elindra kept looking up at them, searching for something familiar. He wondered which star was her home. The attack came 2 nights later. Daniel woke to the sound of his perimeter alarms going off. He had set them years ago. Simple motion sensors around the property. He had never expected them to actually detect anything. He grabbed his rifle and moved to the window. In the moonlight, he saw shapes moving through the trees. They were large and fast and definitely not human. Elindra, he hissed. Wake up. She was already awake, sitting up in bed with fear in her eyes. Kreens, how did they find you? My escape pod. It must have sent out a distress signal before it died. They tracked it here. She struggled to stand. Her leg was healed, but she was still weak from her injuries. Daniel, you have to run. The Cathins will kill you without hesitation. I'm not leaving you. You do not understand. They are warriors. They have weapons beyond anything your world has created. You cannot fight them. Daniel checked his rifle. It was a hunting rifle meant for deer and elk. Not exactly military grade, but it was what he had. Watch me, he said. The Thans broke down the front door. There were 4 of them, tall reptilian creatures covered in scales the color of dried blood. They wore armor and carried weapons that glowed with strange energy. Their eyes were yellow and cold, eyes of predators who saw everything as prey. Daniel fired from the darkness of the hallway. His first shot took the lead kin in the throat, right in the gap between its helmet and chest plate. The creature fell with a gurgling scream. The other 3 scattered, surprised by the attack. They had expected easy prey, not resistance. Daniel did not give them time to recover. He moved through his cabin like a ghost, using his knowledge of every corner and shadow. He fired again and hit a second kin in the leg, bringing it down. Then he was moving again, circling around, never staying in one place. The cranes fired their weapons. Energy beams tore through walls and furniture, leaving burning holes wherever they hit. Daniel felt one pass so close to his head that his hair stood up from the static charge. He dropped behind the kitchen counter and reloaded. His hands were steady. His mind was clear. This was what he had trained for, what he had done for 10 years in the worst places on Earth. The K-Thins were bigger and stronger and better armed, but they had never fought a human before. They did not know what they were dealing with. Daniel grabbed a kitchen knife and moved again. The third crane saw him and raised its weapon, but Daniel was faster. He threw the knife with perfect accuracy, hitting the creature in the eye. It screamed and dropped its weapon, clawing at its face. The 4th CHN charged at him, abandoning its gun. Favor of claws. It was fast, terrifyingly fast, but Daniel had fought fast enemies before. He ducked under the first swipe, rolled to the side, and came up with his rifle. He fired twice into the creature's chest at point blank range. The crane fell and did not get up. Daniel stood in his ruined cabin, breathing hard. 4 alien warriors lay dead around him. His hands were shaking now, the adrenaline fading. He looked down at himself and saw burns and cuts that he had not noticed during the fight. Elindra stood in the door of the bedroom, staring at him with an expression he could not read. "You killed them," she said. "You killed 4 Can warriors alone with primitive weapons. They were trying to hurt you." Daniel, crane warriors are the most feared soldiers in the galaxy. Entire armies have fallen to smaller groups than this, and you defeated them by yourself. She walked toward him slowly, stepping over the bodies. "What are you?" Daniel looked at the dead Sensra. "I am human," he said simply. Elindra was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded as if something had finally become clear to her. "The crane ship that brought them here," she said. "It will have a communication array. If I can reach it, I can send a message to my people." "Where is it?" "It will be nearby." They would not have landed far from their target. She looked at Daniel with new respect in her eyes. "Will you help me find it?" Daniel reloaded his rifle. "Lead the way." The Kreen scout ship was hidden in a clearing 2 miles from Daniel's cabin. It was an ugly thing, all sharp angles and dark metal, built for war rather than beauty. Elindra approached it carefully, checking for any remaining crew members. The ship was empty. The 4 warriors had come alone, confident that they could handle one injured princess. They had been wrong. Elindra climbed inside and found the communication array. It took her several hours to figure out the crane systems, but her military training helped. By Dawn, she had sent a coded message on a Valoran emergency frequency. Now all they could do was wait. The response came 3 days later. A Valoran ship appeared in Earth's orbit, hidden from human detection by technology far beyond anything the planet possessed. A shuttle descended through the atmosphere and landed near Daniel's cabin, which he had spent those 3 days repairing as best he could. The shuttle door opened and Valoran soldiers stepped out. They wore gleaming armor and carried weapons that made Daniel's rifle look like a toy. They stared at him with open suspicion, their golden eyes cold and unwelcoming. Then Elindra emerged from the cabin and everything changed. Princess, the lead soldier, dropped to one knee. The others followed. We thought you were dead. Entire empire mourned your loss. I survived, Elindra said. Because of this man, she gestured to Daniel. He saved my life. The soldiers looked at Daniel. Again, their suspicion did not disappear, but it was joined by something else. Confusion maybe, or curiosity. What is he? One soldier asked. He is a human. This is his world, and he is coming with us to Valoria Prime. The soldiers clearly did not like this idea, but they did not argue with their princess. Daniel was escorted onto the shuttle, feeling very small and very alone among these tall silver beings who looked at him like he was an insect. The journey to Valoria Prime took 2 weeks. Daniel spent most of that time in a small cabin, studying Valoran language and customs on a tablet that Elindra had given him. She visited him every day, teaching him things that the tablet could not, preparing him for what lay ahead. My people are proud, she warned him. They believe that the Valoran Empire is the greatest civilization in the galaxy. They will not accept you easily. I am not looking for acceptance, Daniel said. I just want to make sure you get home safe. Elindra smiled at him. It was a sad smile, the kind she wore when she was thinking about things she could not say. You are a strange creature. Daniel caught her. When the ship arrived at Valoria Prime, Daniel finally understood what Elindra had meant when she described her world. The planet was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. Purple skies stretched over silver oceans. Cities floated in the clouds, connected by bridges of light. Everything was elegant and perfect and completely alien. The shuttle landed on a platform outside the royal palace. Crowds had gathered to welcome their princess home. They cheered and waved and threw flowers that changed color in the air. But when Daniel stepped out of the shuttle, the cheering stopped. Thousands of golden eyes stared at him. He heard whispers spreading through the crowd. Ugly, primitive, disgusting. He did not need to speak Valoran to understand the tone. Daniel kept his face neutral and followed Elindra toward the palace. The Fate Throne room was even more impressive than the cities outside. Columns of crystal rose toward a ceiling that seemed to be made of captured starlight. Nobles in flowing robes lined the walls, watching with the same cold suspicion as the soldiers. And at the far end of the room, sitting on a throne of golden light, was King Thalern. He was old. Daniel could see that immediately. His silver skin was dull and his shoulders were bent with the weight of years and grief. But when he saw his daughter walking toward him, something changed. Light returned to his eyes. He rose from his throne and descended the steps, moving faster than his age should have allowed. Elindra. His voice cracked on her name. Father. They embraced in front of the entire court. The king held his daughter like He was afraid she would disappear again, like she was made of smoke and dreams. Tears ran down his silver cheeks. I thought I had lost you, he whispered. I am home now, father, I am home. Moment was beautiful. Daniel felt like he was intruding on something private and sacred. He tried to step back to fade into the background, but Elindra would not let him. Father, she said, pulling away from the embrace, I need to introduce you to someone, she led the king toward Daniel. The nobles watched with barely hidden disgust. Some covered their mouths as if Daniel smelled bad, others turned away entirely. This is Daniel Carter, Elindra said. He is a human from a planet called Earth. He is the reason I am alive. King Thalarin looked at Daniel. For a long moment, his expression was unreadable. You saved my daughter, he said finally. I did what anyone would do, your majesty. No, the king shook his head. You did what very few would do. You helped a stranger from another world expecting nothing in return. He extended his hand in what Daniel recognized as a Valoran gesture of thanks. I am grateful to you, human. Daniel returned the gesture, mimicking what Elindra had taught him. However, the king continued, and his voice grew colder. I must ask what you expect as a reward. Wealth, technology, a place. My court. I expect nothing, your majesty. I did not save Elindra for a reward. I saved her because she needed help. The king studied him again. Daniel felt like he was being measured, weighed, judged by standards he did not understand. Interesting, Dalvin said. Finally, he turned to address the court. This human will be given quarters in the palace as an honored guest. He will be treated with respect. Anyone who insults or harms him will answer to me personally. It was a generous offer, but Daniel could see the truth in the eyes of the nobles around him. They did not see him as an honored guest. They saw him as a pet, a curiosity, a primitive creature that their princess had brought home like a stray animal. That night, alone in his luxurious quarters, Daniel stared out the window at the floating cities of Valoria Prime. He wondered if coming here had been a mistake. He did not belong in this world of silver skin and golden eyes. He was too small, too plain, too human. But then he thought about Elindra, the way she looked at him, not with disgust or pity, but with genuine respect, the way she called him brother in her language, an honor she said was reserved for the closest of bonds. He had not come here for acceptance. He had come here because it was the right thing to do, and that was enough. A knock in his door interrupted his thoughts. He opened it to find a tall Valoran male in military uniform. The male looked at Daniel with open contempt. Human, the male said. I am High Commander Zethos. Tomorrow you will appear before the War Council. The princess claims you defeated 4K Than warriors alone. I do not believe her. He leaned closer, his golden eyes burning with challenge. I intend to prove that she is mistaken. Daniel held the commander's gaze without flinching. I will be there, he said. Zero smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Good, I look forward to exposing you for the fraud you are. He turned and walked away, leaving Daniel alone with his thoughts and the stars outside his window. The War Council chamber was filled with the most powerful beings in the Valor Empire. Generals, admirals, nobles, and advisors sat in a circle around a central platform. King Thalarin watched from his elevated throne, his expression unreadable. Elindra stood beside him, her hands clenched with tension. "Do." Daniel walked into the center of the room. He wore simple clothes, nothing like the elaborate robes of the Valorans. Around him, he felt small and plain and completely out of place, but he kept his back straight and his eyes forward. "Hi." Commander Zethra stepped onto the platform across from him. He was tall, even by Valorant standards, with shoulders like a mountain and arms thick with muscle. He wore ceremonial armor that gleamed under the lights. "This human claims to have killed 4 Kreen warriors," Zos announced to the council. "Our princess believes him. I do not." He turned to face Daniel with contempt. His eyes, "The Cranes are the greatest warriors in the galaxy. The idea that this small, soft creature could defeat even one is laughable. Then let me prove it," Daniel said. His voice was calm, steady. Murmurs rippled through the council. Zethros looked surprised, then amused. "You wish to fight against me?" "I wish to demonstrate whatever form that takes." Zero laughed. It was a cruel sound designed to humiliate. "Very well. Human, a training duel. First to yield or fall. No weapons." He began removing his armor. "I will try not to hurt you too badly." Daniel removed his jacket. Underneath, his body was lean and scarred, marked by years of combat and survival. The Valorant stared at his scars with a mixture of fascination and revulsion. To them, such marks were signs of weakness, proof that his body could not protect itself. They did not understand what those scars really meant. "Begin," King Thalorn said. Zero moved first. He was faster than any human could ever be. His fist shot toward Daniel's face with enough force to shatter bone. Daniel was not there. He had slipped to the side, letting the blow pass inches from his head. Before Zos could recover, Daniel struck. His elbow connected with the commander's ribs. His knee drove into the commander's thigh. His palm slammed against the commander's ear. None of the blows were strong enough to seriously hurt a Valoran, but they were precise. They hit nerve clusters and pressure points, targets that Daniel had learned about during countless hours of combat training. Zithro stumbled momentarily. Stunned, Daniel did not give him time to recover. He moved around the bigger opponent like water flowing around stone, striking again and again, never staying in one place long enough to be caught. The council watched in shocked silence. They had expected the human to be crushed immediately. Instead, he was dancing around their greatest warrior, landing blow after blow while avoiding every counterattack. Zos grew angry. His movements became wild, desperate. He swung at Daniel with both hands, trying to grab him, crush him, end this humiliation. But Daniel was always one step ahead, reading his opponent's body language, predicting his moves before he made them. Finally, Daniel saw his opening. Zeros overextended on a punch, leaving his balance vulnerable. Daniel dropped low, swept the commander's legs, and sent him crashing to the ground. Before Zithos could rise, Daniel was on top of him, his forearm pressed against the commander's throat. "Yeah," Daniel said quietly. Zero struggled, but he could not break free. Daniel's position was perfect, his leverage unbreakable. After a long moment, the commander stopped fighting. "I yield," he growled. Thought. Daniel released him and stood up. He was breathing hard, sweat running down his face, but he was not injured. He had fought a warrior twice his size and strength, and he had won. The council chamber was completely silent. Ben King Thal began to clap. The sound echoed through the room like thunder. Slowly, other council members joined in. Not all of them, but enough. The applause was not enthusiastic, but it was real, impressive. The king said when the clapping faded, "You have proven that the princes spoke the truth, but I must ask, human, how is this possible? You are smaller than us. Weaker, your world has no advanced technology. How can you fight like this?" Daniel faced the king. "My world is not easy, your majesty. Earth is full of dangers, predators, diseases, natural disasters, and most of all, each other. Humans have been fighting to survive. Since the day we first walked, we are not the strongest species on our planet. But we are the most adaptable. We learn. We endure. We refuse to give up." He paused, thinking about how to explain something that was so fundamental to his existence. "When I was a soldier, my instructors taught me that the body is just a tool. The real weapon is here." He pointed to his head, and here he pointed to his heart. "Strength without will is useless. Speed without intelligence is wasted. Humans may be primitive by your standards, but we have been forged by a world that shows no mercy. That makes us dangerous." Elindra stepped forward. "I saw him fight the Cretan's father, 4 of their best warriors armed with energy weapons. Daniel killed them with a simple projectile rifle and a kitchen knife. He did not hesitate. He did not fear. He simply did what needed to be done." She looked at Daniel with pride in her eyes. Humans call their world a pale blue dot, a tiny speck in the vastness of space. They have no idea that their galaxy is filled with empires and wars. They have never received visitors from the stars, but I believe that when they do, when they finally take their place among the other species, they will change everything. She turned back to her father. "Daniel showed me what humanity is capable of. I believe they could be the greatest allies the Valorian Empire has ever had." King Thalern was silent for a long time. He looked at Daniel with new eyes, seeing not a primitive creature, but something else, something unexpected. "Human," he said finally, "Daniel Carter, I offer you a place of honor in my court. You would want for nothing. Your bravery would be celebrated for generations." Daniel shook his head. "Thank you, your majesty, but I do not belong here. My place is on Earth with my own people." "Then what do you want?" Daniel thought about the question. He thought about his small cabin in the mountains, about the stars he had watched his entire life without knowing what was out there. "I want you to send someone to Earth," he said, "an ambassador, someone who can make contact with my people the right way. Humanity deserves to know that we are not alone. And I believe that if you give us a chance, we will prove ourselves worthy of standing beside you." The king nodded slowly. A bold request, but perhaps not an unreasonable one. He looked at his council. "We will discuss this proposal. For now, this session is ended." The council members filed out, many of them casting curious glances at Daniel as they passed. Zos limped away without looking at him, his pride wounded more than his body. Soon only Daniel, Elindra, and the king remained. "You could have asked for anything," Thalern said. "Wealth, power, technology. That would make you the most important human on your planet. Why did you ask for this instead?" Daniel smiled. "Because I did not save Elindra for a reward. I saved her because it was right, and asking for an alliance is not for me. It is for every human who will ever look up at the stars and wonder if someone is looking back." The king studied him for another long moment. Then for the first time he smiled. You have vowed Daniel Carter, true vow, he extended his hand in the Valorian gesture of deepest respect. Go home to your world, tell your people that they are not alone, and tell them that the Valoran Empire looks forward to meeting them. Daniel returned the gesture. Elindra walked into the shuttle that would take him back to Earth. At the platform she stopped and turned to face him. I will never forget what you did for me, she said. You gave me back my life, you gave me back my father. There are no words in any language that can express my gratitude. You do not need to thank me, I know, but I want to. She reached out and pressed her palm against his chest over his heart. It was a Valoran gesture of the deepest bond. In my language, the word for someone who is more than a friend, more than family is. It means soul bonded. Brother, you are my Valara Daniel Carter, now and forever. Daniel felt his eyes sting. He pressed his palm against her chest in return. And you are mine, Elindra. Take care of yourself. I will, and I will see you again when our peoples finally meet. I will be there. Daniel boarded the shuttle as it rose into the purple sky of Valoria Prime. He looked out the window and saw Elindra watching him, her silver hand raised in farewell. 2 weeks later, he was back in his cabin in the mountains of Colorado. The damage from the crane attack had been fully repaired, fixed by Valoran technology. Before they left, everything looked exactly as it had before, but everything had changed. Daniel sat on his porch and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, an alien princess was thinking of him. Somewhere out there, an ancient king was preparing to send an ambassador to Earth. Somewhere out there, humanity's future was being written. And it had all started because one man had chosen to help a stranger who fell from the sky. Daniel smiled and watched the stars. They did not seem so far away anymore.